Hi, everybody. This is Real Talk with Rick, a podcast, all things Eden Prairie, about Eden Prairie. The city of Eden Prairie, as many other businesses and government agencies, has an IT division, an informational technology division. We obviously have things that are unique to Eden Prairie, a police department, a fire department, that you aren't going to find in other businesses throughout the country, but IT is something we all can relate to, or many people can relate to. So my guest this episode is our city's IT network administrator, James Goldenstein. James talks to me about IT in Eden Prairie, our IT infrastructure, and he also waxes poetic about some of the buzzwords in IT, such as the cloud, what is the cloud, and the Internet of Things. Here's my talk with James Goldenstein. James, welcome.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. This should be fun. I've listened to the past couple, and I'm ready to answer your questions.
Awesome. James Goldenstein is our IT network administrator here in Eden Prairie. And I think what we'll start with, I mentioned this in the intro, I talked a little bit about, many businesses can relate to having a human resources department or an information technology department. We've had our mayor and police chief in here on those previous podcasts you mentioned, and that's obviously very unique to a city government, but information technology, IT, is something that everybody can relate to. So tell us a little bit about the Eden Prairie IT department. How big is the department? How many people are there? Where do you fit within that department, James?
So we have 7 people in our department. To start with, we have our manager. Her name's Aditi. Underneath that is myself. I am the IT network administrator. And then we have 3 technicians, and then we have a GIS coordinator. My role will be taking care of the servers and any more difficult technical problems that the technicians can't resolve in any larger projects. For example, right now we're going through a project of upgrading the police software to the newest version.
That's a big deal. I think, tell us a little bit about, when you think about police, so we have several different departments in a city. You support all of them.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about the different departments that you support and maybe some of the unique applications that some of them have. What are some of the big applications?
Our IT role here is very unique, as we support public safety, which is fire and police, and a 911 dispatch center. Then we also support the liquor stores. They have POS registers there. We have the community center as well. And then we have just regular city operations that most citizens are aware of. What makes us very, very unique is we are a 24/7 operation. And so whenever we're doing upgrades, we have to keep in mind, how do we do this without taking public safety down? And with this big police, fire, public safety upgrade, we have to do it correctly and go through the right process. Otherwise, there'll be major problems, and we are doing our best to avoid that.
Yeah, that's true. I know that obviously there are pieces of the network that are outside of the city. If you look at, the 911 system or the other system where we're relying on other agencies and even the state of Minnesota, but 911 really can't go down.
No. I mean, we have to have that going 24/7 no matter what. And when we work with our vendors, they'll usually say, hey, can we schedule a downtime? It's like, there is no downtime here. We must plan things so we do not take anything down. And they usually give us kind of a look like, oh, we can do this at other places. I'm like, we can't. We have to keep public safety up 24/7 no matter what.
Yeah, that's a huge part of what you do. So talk a little bit about being the network administrator. What does that entail? Talk about our network a little bit, our city network.
Yeah, our city network is wonderful in the fact that we have our own connections to every building. And I won't get too technical on it, but we have our own fiber connections. That's ours. We don't share it with anybody else. And we also there's a consortium called Logis. We share a 10 gig internet connection with them out through the city of Edina and Minnetonka. And it's very nice because most businesses only have one building, one location, and one internet connection. But the way we're set up is we have, they like to call it dark fiber, where it's your only fiber connection between every building, which gives us bandwidth and redundancy built into the system. That's very unique to have something like that.
So we talked about the liquor stores earlier. And that's something that I think has only been the last 5 or 6 years, where by having this fiber connecting our 3 liquor stores, then they're able to have a point of sale system that can be reliant on fiber and not Wi-Fi or.
Yeah, at one point in time, we actually had microwave radio wireless towers connected when I first started here.
Okay.
And those were reaching the end of their life. They were very useful connecting point to point, but because of weather conditions and deterioration, they eventually just started failing. And we were in the process of putting fiber in. But back to the liquor stores, with the fiber connecting all the stores, they can have one central server to store all their information instead of each liquor store having their own server and their own internet connection. Everything is now combined together.
Okay. And speaking of servers, when I think about servers, and over the years I think about just rooms full of servers. Like the city server room is just full of computers, but that used to be the case maybe 10 years ago or even when you first came. But that's changing too, right?
Yeah, that has changed dramatically over the past probably 5 to 7 years. And it's called virtualization. The server room, if you go down there now, is very big because there was room to have hundreds of physical servers. And if you can imagine in your head how big a server actually is, it can take up a lot of space, generate a lot of power, and generate a lot of heat. With virtualization, we're able to take 2 or 3 servers and actually run 20 to 30 to 50 individual servers off of them. So it's very cool to see how technology keeps changing and making things smaller, not creating as much heat to keep the room cool, and not as much power. So if we ever have a power problem, we can run off the backup battery and then the generator of the city.
Okay. So maybe on that theme too, I'll ask more about kind of the day-to-day City of Eden Prairie IT stuff, but when you're talking about server virtualization, what are maybe a couple other things when you think about what has changed in your field and maybe, what you've seen in the last 5 to 7 years? What are some of the new things that you're dealing with?
A lot of the new things we're dealing with is handheld devices. Everybody has them now. Everybody brings their own cell phone, their own tablet. If you go back 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, only people who had them would be maybe C-level executives, and the company would pay for them, or somebody like yourself as a city manager. Now, everybody has them, and everybody is connected 24/7. So we are bombarded with people who are going, I've got a Samsung, I've got an Apple. Everybody needs to be connected and wants to be connected.
That's true. I mean, it's a bring your own device society. So many of our employees and all of our police officers and firefighters and other employees have our own devices where we're connected into the city, and you guys support all that. And
yep.
you guys, like what did you mention? Samsung, I'm Apple. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to cover everything, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So that's new.
That's new, and one of the greatest things I think we were able to accomplish in the last year and a half is actually moving our email server into the hosted Microsoft cloud environment. And for the end users, that means you can have as much email as you want instead of having a server on-premise where we had to limit you to a smaller mailbox. That makes the end user's life so much easier that they don't have to worry about cleaning up email and deleting it and storing it somewhere else, that everything's in just one spot.
Okay, so the cloud.
The cloud, yeah.
You said the cloud. You said the word the cloud.
Well, such a buzzword.
Where is the cloud?
Well, if I look straight up, I see clouds, but that is definitely not.
That's not the cloud you're talking about?
That's not the cloud we're talking about here. And the cloud is a buzzword that's been around. And what it used to be, I will host your servers for you. It means another vendor would have their own servers and have their own redundancy built into it, and you would pay a fee for it to be in their data center. And one day the cloud came about. Okay. There tends to be a lot of buzzwords in IT that can get people excited about everything, which works great for marketing. But as an IT person,
you've always known what that meant.
Always known what that means.
Cloud. Okay, what? So that explains it in terms of people talk about everything is in the cloud. So now just an individual has their photos on their phone, and it'll say put these in the cloud so you can have 1,000 photos instead of 100 photos. And I know it's safe in the cloud. Then I should feel safe, because wasn't that an issue where when whether it's the server virtualization or going into the cloud, that you might quote unquote lose control of your information?
That's very, very true. And a lot of people, when they sign up for Google Photos, Facebook, or any of these wonderful products that say that they'll keep your photos in the cloud, which means on their servers.
Yes.
It's very cool because, a lot of the phones we have cannot store thousands and thousands of photos because we take pictures of everything now. You got your phone, you take a photo of it. The downside is that's in their systems. And when you signed up for this, you agreed to let them have access to all that kind of stuff. You're hoping that their security is going to keep you safe. But that may not always be the case. And that's something people need to be aware of. There's nothing wrong with putting your photos up there, but just think, if somebody inside Google or Apple gets in there and grabs your photos, they've got them. So it's with anything, you'd always want to be safe on the type of photos you keep and safe. And so
what you have, because you don't have them in your own possession, but obviously technology allows you to utilize the cloud.
And there's a lot of good about that too.
Right.
There's a lot of good that there's a spot to keep all your photos. So if you lose your phone, all your precious photos are saved. So there's good with that. But the bad side is Google, Microsoft, Apple is all taking the data about them and storing it behind the scenes and collecting lots of information about you. And I don't think you need to be paranoid about that. Oh no, Apple saw that I took this photo here, or Google knows that I was at TCF Bank Stadium for a football game or a concert. That's not such a big deal, but they know a lot about you, and they can take all this data and put it together and have some unbelievable analytics about our day-to-day lives that would probably amaze everybody if they came forth and said, we know at 3 o'clock p.m. in Eden Prairie that there's going to be 100 people at the Eden Prairie Center Mall, or there's going to be 15 people eating at a restaurant just from what we've seen in the past. So they know a lot of trends, and what they can do with that data is turn around and sell it to, say a new restaurant wants to open up in town.
Okay.
They can get that data and go, you know what, on average, these are how busy the restaurants are, and here's what we see where people checking in directions to get there, or the reviews that, you know what, there looks like there's room for another restaurant because all these places are really busy at that time. That's how they use your data.
Well, it's interesting because I read something where someone got I think it was their data biography or whatever it was, their digital life in the last year, and they were able to basically see through just having their phone and where they were with their phone, every single place they were in the last year. And I think they were able to, get that information from their ISP or service provider. So with the city then, there are so many applications that we have that are hosted off-site. You talk about redundancy. You talk about, maybe you didn't talk about disaster recovery, but that's another issue. So you being our network administrator then, so you're taking precautions to safeguard all of our information and the city information. So tell me how you go about doing that and how comfortable you are with that, speaking of.
Yeah. And so one thing my coworkers would tell you that I am very paranoid about our city data and keeping things up and going. And that's in a good sense. It's not like I'm down there in our IT just worried about everything, but you have to be aware of what is going on. And so for putting all the city stuff in the cloud, do we want to take all our servers, all our applications, and put them somewhere where, for example, I think it was about 2 years ago, Amazon had an outage where they had Amazon web servers where you can host your servers, they host websites. 50 to 60% of the internet was down. And they had redundancies built in place. It was from one employee who hit the wrong button. So you think, we've got to keep our stuff safe, and we have to be up 24/7. Some of our city applications are hosted by Logis. They have their own internal building with their own redundancies. We have our city center here has a data center, but we also have our very own disaster recovery center, which is inside a city building. So if something were to happen here, we can fail over to that location.
So we have a major power outage or tornado or something that hits this building. We have a backup
We do.
At another location.
Another city
Right.
location. And
Good.
that would be our very own personal cloud. So we can run off of that. There is a lot of sensitive city data and public safety data that we don't want to just put on some random server out there in the cloud, and if something happens, have to deal with that. So we, paranoia. I want to make sure we have redundancies and copies of stuff in our own hands. And some things are perfectly safe to put in the cloud, such as our email. So that's how I approach that.
Sure. No, that's good, because we read about some of these companies, and maybe there was even a state or local government that their data was compromised, and that's the ransomware example, right? Where we have your data, and if you want it back, you need to pay X amount. And so I know you don't sit down in your office worrying about that every day, but those threats, whether it's ransomware or attacks on our network, that's what you're monitoring on a regular basis, right? We have been lucky so far. We haven't had, I can't recall, knock on wood, outages, cyber attacks. But yeah, that's something that you're always dealing with, right?
Yep, that is something that's always on my mind, and I'm always keeping up with the latest security threats that are out there. We work very closely with Logis as they provide our internet to make sure nobody bad is getting in. But we make sure our end users cannot install software on their machines. And we also train our end users to go, if something seems right, don't click on that link, because a lot of the times all these things are happening is from just a normal end user just clicking on something, installing something. The next thing they know, holy cow, I've got this pop-up on my screen saying I need to pay $1,000 in Bitcoin. And they go, what is a Bitcoin? This isn't a dollar.
Right.
They pay the money, they get them a key, it unlocks their machine. Now they have all their data back. But that's really, really expensive and very scary at the same time. So we try our best to minimize those risks from happening. And it may be annoying to the end user sometimes. I can't install this, or I need IT, or why is IT making me do this training about security? I'm never going to click on something wrong. Well, things can happen, and we just want to protect everybody here and all our assets and make sure things are still running.
That's a good point. I mean, you're protecting attacks from the outside, but then sometimes our own behaviors can create an attack. You do a good job of keeping us trained and in line. You require us to change our passwords on a regular basis, right?
Yep, every 90 days.
And there's some passwords that are better than others. So
Yep. We force you to have a capital letter. It's got to be so many characters. It has to have a special character in there. And on top of it, you can't reuse any of your past 24 passwords. So you have to really think about how to create your password to make sure it's safe. But we also don't want it to the point where people are actually taking sticky notes and writing them on their keyboard. You flip over the keyboard and there's a sticky note because we made it too complex for the users.
Yeah.
I've seen that many times in the past.
So, it's the world. The one thing is no matter what is going to happen, things are going to change. And you talked about, so now we're dealing with a world of mobile devices. We're dealing with sophisticated people out there that might want to get into a network and get to our data. So you're protecting that. You're training us to make sure that we don't make a mistake to let somebody in. But on top of that, we've got yourself and, the other, folks that work in IT are just supporting our computers and our systems and our mobile devices. I mean, we've got 300, 400, 500, 600 pieces of equipment that you guys are supporting?
There's close to about 350 workstations in the city and close to around probably 450 user accounts that are out there.
450 user accounts.
So those guys are very busy installing software, resetting passwords, swapping out machines, and all sorts of other things that can happen throughout the day. And that's one thing that makes this job really unique is when you come in, every day can be completely different. You can come in and you could spend your whole day over at the liquor store helping them with an upgrade to the liquor software. Or you could spend your whole day in the police department helping them with something. Or otherwise you could spend your whole day just working on something internally IT. And that's what's really nice about it is it's not the same old thing over and over again.
And so you've got the supporting of applications, and then you referred to this earlier, and I don't know if anybody picked up on GIS, which is Geographical Information Systems, something unique to local government and government. So we want to do a shout out to Dan, our GIS person in IT, but
Yeah.
there is some customized development
There is.
that we have. So you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and Dan is a great guy. He knows that stuff very, very well. I do like to tease him and have my own definitions for GIS, geological information systems, and I ask him about mountains and earthquakes and all things that are not in that realm. And he just looks at me. He's just like, "What is wrong with you?" But in all seriousness, we have our own maps that are customized in there that our end users can scroll in, click on a property, and get all information they need at one click. And it's so useful for somebody in planning or assessing the scroll and go, "Oh, this is the address it's at," or "This is the zone it's at." It makes things so much easier for everybody involved.
And that is one thing that we're trying to keep adding more ability to be a 24/7 operation, not only you talking about supporting our IT infrastructure, but the fact that a resident or a business or somebody could go to a map, click on an address, get the complete history of a property, learn everything about that property, but also be able to schedule a building inspection, get a building permit, and even in the future, we're working on this, we're not there yet, you can submit all kinds of plans online. You actually don't really ever need to even come into this building. We can be a virtual city hall. So, those applications, See, Click, Fix is another one where we didn't develop it, but the city supports it, where someone on a mobile device could see a problem, take a picture of it, and it gets uploaded and sent to our city. So you guys are a driving force behind, being on the cutting edge of seeing what's out there, what can work, protecting us at the same time that we want to look for new ways of doing business.
Yeah, we want to make sure we're very efficient at how we do things. So if we do find a piece of software that citizens can report in, we want to make sure it's easy for the citizen to report in. We want to make sure once it gets to the appropriate person inside the city, they can get it, they can forward it on to the streets department. Nothing can be more cumbersome than hitting a pothole, grabbing your phone, calling the city, getting transferred around, and finally getting to the right person and saying, "Oh yeah, I hit a pothole over on this street." Instead, you can just grab your phone, send it in, and it'll be just taken care of instantly for you. Same thing when they're submitting plans to get inspected. I mean, just the easier, the more efficient, the better.
Good, yeah. So you guys are always kind of seeing what's out there, and we try to keep on top of those new developments. What I typically start out a podcast with is getting a little bit of background, kind of background story on the individuals that we have, and I just jumped in with you right away with, tell us about the Eden Prairie IT department, tell me who works there, what do they do, but I never had a chance to ask you, were you thinking back when you were in high school, grade school, that I want to grow up and be an IT network administrator?
I was not. When I was in high school, that was the last thing on my mind. And I wasn't 100% sure of what I was going to do when I got done with college. So then I wandered off to college.
Wandered off to
college,
right.
yeah. I had a couple colleges to choose from. I wound up going to college at Southwest State in Marshall, Minnesota. I went there because it was a smaller school, and I was hoping I would stay out of trouble because it was smaller. And for the most part, I stayed out of trouble, but still found a little bit of trouble. But
sure,
that's all right. I'm still here, so we can't complain.
What were you going to major in? You said you wandered there, like I have no idea what I want to study?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I kind of had in the background maybe business, maybe a music minor, maybe a business major. And I saw something called computer science. And I was like, oh, that sounds intriguing, because I, at that point, was able to make my own machines, build my own PCs. I could support it. I was very intrigued by computers and how they all worked, and it was well ahead of the curve. And we're talking about 1998, 1997, 96, and I will date myself here with dial-up modems and that technology. I mean, I was the first one on campus that was able to get plugged into the high-speed connection there, and I was super excited. And people are like, why are you so excited? I'm like, this is so fast. This is amazing. You guys don't even understand how quick this is compared to the modems that we had before. So a part of me has always been intrigued by that. So that kind of led to, all right, now here I'm at college. I'm going through my generals. Well, let's try some of this computer science stuff. And computer science is actually computer programming, not what I'm doing day to day. And one of the things that's very tough about computer science is when I started the program, the professors flat out said, maybe 20 to 30% of you are going to get through the program. That's how hard it is. Somehow I managed to get through the program. It was a lot of work and got through it. But back in 2001, I decided to switch jobs. I was working full-time at Walmart, of all places, as a support manager. I was like, you know what? I should see what else is out there. Found a job with the Schwann Food Company doing help desk. And I'm like, hey, this is great. I can get some experience in IT.
Sure.
I'm going to graduate in a couple years. I'll have my feet wet and try to understand. And it was phone ring, pick up the phone, support. This is James. And I would help individuals in the office and the field how they do technology stuff. And it'd be, I'd go to college during the day and work from 4 to midnight every day. And then it would be like one weekend every month or something like that. And I liked it. And I was like, wow, I like this interaction with people. I like solving their technology problems. I'm really enjoying this. And I'm like, well, I only have about a year and a half left of programming, but I don't know if programming is the right route for me because what I'm doing right now, I'm doing a really good job at it, and I really like it, which then led me to get some certifications more in that field, and that's how I got to where I am today. There's a longer story to go through the steps of my career, but I won't bore you with the details.
No, I think that's great. I mean, it's this idea that you have an interest in computers. Now, you talk about dating yourself. So you're talking about 1997, 98. There was an internet.
There was.
And
completely
there
different.
were computers. So you just go back 10 years earlier. I'm about 10 years older than you. In 1987, 1988, when I was graduating, you go from typing. You take typing classes. Computer science would be the basic language of computers, of which I didn't take any of those classes. There wasn't any internet. So you were on the cutting edge, James. You were on the advent of.
Yeah, some of it. Yeah. And I was just fascinated by it. I just loved doing it, and that's how I got into the field. As you guys have known me, it'd be a very hard press for me to sit at a desk and type code all day. I like being up and around, interacting with people. I like solving problems. I like seeing the work that I do day to day, fixing the problems for all the departments, making their lives easier. I find joy in that. Some days in IT, it can be problem after problem after problem, but I still leave in a great mood, and I'm still coming back every day and continuing to do it.
Well, that's awesome. That's good. I couldn't be more pleased with having an employee like that has that passion. And yeah, you're putting out fires constantly, but the problem-solving aspect that you enjoy, that's great because it's not going to change, right?
No, it's not going to change.
It's not going to be a day where you're not going to have a work order to take care of.
That will not happen. And even as technology goes forward and things get faster and more sophisticated, we still need IT people to support that. Our jobs will keep us busy for a long, long time.
Yeah, you're gonna. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I think there's only going to be more of an exponential growth, and I mean, I don't know, like wearable technology, right? That's next?
Yeah, you're touching on something that there's another buzzword. We talked about the cloud earlier. The new buzzword is Internet of Things.
Okay.
Yeah.
IoT.
Buzzwords. They're just something else for me. So the Internet of Things is, guess what? You have your doorbell that has a camera on now. That's awesome. I've got my thermostat on my phone. I can turn the temperature up and down right from my phone. I can open my garage door remotely from my phone. You can have a little webcam looking at your house. That stuff is really cool, and more that's going to keep coming forward. And that's going to benefit people immensely. But there's always a downside to it. A lot of people will get this stuff and hook it up, and they won't change something like the default password, and they won't do software upgrades on it. And that's where we'll see some hacker out there go, oh, you know what? This is one of the devices that hasn't been updated. I'm going to go ahead and set your temperature to 90 degrees in your house. You're going to come home, and it's going to be super, super hot, or I'm going to open and close your garage door all day long. So there are some great things about this technology, but always be aware to make sure you change the password on these devices and update them when updates come out.
Yeah, and so you yourself, maybe to kind of prank some of your coworkers, those would be some of the things that you would do to them, though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
You so when you're not worried about the future of technology. You're not concerned about the buzzwords out there. You're not solving problems for us every day. What else? What do you do to relax then?
The one thing I love to do after I leave work every day is to go to my local YMCA and get a great workout in.
Good.
I just love doing that. It just decompresses for me. And then I go home and I may watch some TV, but the weekends are my favorite time. I love going to Canterbury to play the ponies. I'm a big horse player.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about the Kentucky Derby, Breeders' Cup, or want any information in that, I'm more than happy to talk about that with folks. My favorite part of year is going on right now, Vikings season.
Okay.
The football season's going on.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the football season, you've got hockey. I like hockey, but I don't get too excited till the playoffs begin because the level of play is unbelievable. But one of the things in the past couple of years I've really learned to like and watch a lot after the football season is, some people don't understand this, and the people laugh at me about this, is NASCAR. So
NASCAR's a huge sport.
It's very huge, especially in some parts of this country. It's amazing, and if you watch a race from beginning to end, you'll be entertained.
Beginning to end is like, what is that, like 5 hours?
It's about 2.5, 3 hours. So
okay.
It's about
feels like 5 hours.
It might if it's a really boring race.
Okay.
But some races can be highly entertaining and highly amusing. Just from somebody's in first place, they crash, they lose a tire, and just all sorts of crazy things happen. So the dilemma comes in football season because the NASCAR season is probably way too long because it starts about 2 weeks after the Super Bowl and ends right around the week of Thanksgiving. So that's a very long season.
10, 11-month NASCAR season.
So Vikings play at noon. NASCAR race starts at 1. So what I do is I have the Vikings up and the sound with the Vikings going, and then I grab a second TV and put it next to it, turn the sound off, and stream the NASCAR race. I don't need to hear the play-by-play by NASCAR, but in football, a play takes 5 seconds, so a play can look, and then you can go over and see where the race is at and go back and forth. So that's
You're a multitasker.
I am a multitasker.
You can the same thing the same time those two TVs are on. You're probably on your iPad or your phone, and you're probably checking out different racetracks across the country.
Yep,
so you're
can
checking
happen.
that out.
That has happened where
at the same time you got your fantasy football team that you're checking on. Mm-hmm. You've got all that happening at the same time.
Yep, that's what I like about the weekends.
I can just picture you on a Saturday. Just it's all right there in front of you, and
it's fun.
Awesome.
I love the weekends.
That's awesome.
Yeah, as long as nothing breaks at 3 a.m. and we get called.
Right.
Weekends are great, but that happens from time to time.
It does. You do. You get called. You get calls. You said earlier we're a 24/7 operation here, so we have police officers work in the middle of the night, and something could break, and you could get a call.
Mm-hmm. But that's
Absolutely.
okay. That's all part of it. And,
part of the job.
And totally enjoy that.
Good. Well, James, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate you coming. Good.
Yeah, I hope everybody enjoys listening to this, and it's fun to talk about IT because a lot of places IT is just kind of tucked away and they just do their things, and it's just great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.